The New England Patriots take one small step with their first padded practice of training camp, but the offense takes a giant leap forward. Well, everyone except for Drake May. More on that and more on the Christian Barmore health situation, plus Davon Godchaux and Matthew Judon, who had a bit of a blow-up today. All of that and more here on Patscast.
Glory to the name that's on fire, heat, blood, and sweat. Patscast, tell the stories we won't forget.
Welcome to Patscast. I'm Brad Whitaker. Good to be with you. The Patriots had their first padded practice of the 2024-25 NFL season, and I'm starting to feel a little bit better. You know, you never know how an offense is going to really look until they put on pads, especially an offensive line. And like I said in the intro, they took a giant leap forward today, except for Drake May, who really had a rough one. Perhaps his worst practice in a Patriots uniform, counting OTAs and minicamp and rookie minicamp and all that. So he didn't have a great day, but Jacoby Brissett, on the other hand, had an excellent performance. Did have 2 sacks in competitive team periods, but overall he went 10 of 11 and had some impressive throws, most notably a deep bomb to Javon Baker. You can probably find that clip on X. It was a really impressive throw into double coverage, or ahead of double coverage, which Javon Baker was able to beat out and put in an incredible catch. And Baker, I gotta say, if you bought stock on Javon Baker 2 weeks ago, you would be a rich man or a rich woman, because he is really stepping it up, and I hope he's in that starting lineup on week 1. I want to see him on the field that very first snap. He continues to develop, had an excellent practice today alongside Jacoby Brissett, but Brissett really an outstanding performance, great completion rate, hitting multiple receivers, 4 significant gains, whereas Drake May was kind of the lone dud on the offensive side of things, struggled with his accuracy, overthrew a number of times. There were times he threw it to absolutely no one, and he went 3 of 11 with an interception and 2 sacks, and that interception was a would-be pick 6 from Kyle Duggar. So, you know, you're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days when you're a rookie, and as long as that growth, it's never linear, but as long as you slowly have more good days than bad days, then you're in a good spot. And Drake May, well, today was perhaps his greatest setback. I would expect him, hopefully, to respond, but right now it seems like Jacoby Brissett, if there was any practice where he solidified his spot as the starter, it was this one. And Jerod Mayo even says, like, he's our starter right now. And he was asked the question, I think by Kay Adams, if it is neck and neck and Drake May looks just as good as Jacoby Brissett out there, well, Jerod Mayo said it would still be Jacoby Brissett, because you're going to lean on the veteran in that situation, because he's going to be able to do things that a rookie quarterback cannot just from experience alone. But Brissett, really great practice. Also had a great deep ball down the left sideline to Tyquan Thornton on a bucket throw. Really excellent job there. Some of the other top targets. Javon Baker had the catch of the day, like I said, but he did go 2 of 5 on 5 targets. There were a few where he perhaps should have caught it, or the defender was in the way. There were a few things there, but Baker, that's the thing. If it doesn't matter if he's not catching everything. If he can provide big chunk plays, that's something the Patriots have missed for years at the receiver position. Hunter Henry, 2 of 3. Tyquan Thornton, 2 targets, 2 catches. Same with Austin Hooper. Same for Antonio Gibson. But I think perhaps most importantly is this was the best practice we've seen so far from the offensive line. And it's not just that they were protecting their quarterbacks, and they kind of were, right? Like, there were 2 sacks against Brissett. Drake May had a number of sacks. Like, it wasn't perfect. Like, I don't want to sit here and say, like, we have our starting offensive line. It was far from perfect, but the defense wasn't getting to the quarterback at will, like in previous practices. Last week, I had my most negative podcast yet. On Thursday, where I just said, all right, this feels like the ghost of Matt Patricia has returned, and they're trying to implement a wide zone scheme, trying to implement a West Coast offense, and it just isn't working. Well, that wasn't the case today, and it's not as if the pass protection was amazing, but it was much better with pads on. But perhaps the greatest improvement we saw today was in the run game. Ramondre Stevenson, Gibson, Kevin Harris, each had a number of long gains during team drills. Patriots ran the ball very well, and that is something that I thought would kind of come last toward not just the end of training camp, toward the end of preseason, where the Patriots are finally starting to get the run game together. But perhaps that's the greatest learning curve for a team that has relied on the power run for 2.5 decades now, other than that brief blip with Matt Patricia where they reverted back to the power run game. Well, they actually ran a wide zone scheme today and had some massive games, all with Stevenson, Gibson, and Harris. Those are probably going to be the three on the depth chart, and they all played very well today. And that, you want to give Stevenson and Gibson and Harris all the credit, but it really comes down to the offensive line. This is why running backs really aren't paid in the NFL, right? Because if you have a guy out there and he has a good hole in front of him and he takes it, well, anyone can gain a lot of yards that way. I'm not devaluing the importance of having a good running back out there, but that's just the way it works. These are all, if you're good enough that you can play at a pro level, play running back, it really is just going to depend on the offensive line that you have in front of you, your run blocking game, and that's the reason Harris, Stevenson, and Gibson all had a great practice. And interestingly enough, they did that today without David Andrews on the field. He was absent from today's practice, not sure why. Hopefully his parents gave him a permission slip, so he'll be back out there soon. But offensive line was what we saw last week with Caden Wallace at left tackle, Sidney So at left guard, Nick Leverett filled in for David Andrews at center, and then you had Mike Onwenu starting at right guard again, not right tackle. That was Chuks Okorafor, and they did a really good job in terms of winning on the pass rush. Michael Onwenu on the one-on-one pass rush went 1-3, lost none. Nick Leverett, 1-3, lost none. Layden Robinson, the rookie guard that they drafted, he wasn't in the starting unit, but he won 2, lost none. I mean, it was a good practice for the offensive line, and that's the reason today was a giant leap forward. Because like I've said 1,000 times on this podcast, I'm really not that worried about the quarterback position. I think if Drake May's ready, great. But if Jacoby Brissett is out there, he's more than competent. He's not Tom Brady. He's never going to be Tom Brady. But he can be a guy that you can depend on. I think they have so much depth at wide receiver that the real challenge is who's going to make the team. I'm not worried about that. They may not have a superstar out there, but I mean, Javon Baker, he could be a superstar in a couple of years from what we've seen. He's shown real flashes and something that we really haven't seen in New England for quite some time. I'm happy with Jalen Polk. Demario Douglas, if he can get healthy, which I'm sure he can. It's just it seems like a minor hand injury. He's your great, reliable slot receiver, plus Kendrick Bourne when he's healthy, and KJ Osborne, another slot receiver. And then they got 3 pretty good tight ends that should be able to contribute. It all comes down to the offensive line, which up until today was a disaster. And today was not a disaster. Not necessarily because the pass rush was tremendously better. It was better, but because the running game actually existed out there. And that's what you have to do with a West Coast offense, is you have to establish the run so you can run play action, so you can run bootlegs, and then really get the passing game going that way and keep defenses guessing. The Patriots can establish the run early in games this season. That's going to make a big difference. That's going to be the difference between another 4-13 season and a borderline playoff team. Hopefully it continues, but the offensive line looking so much better in pads. And of course, Caden Wallace starting at left tackle again. He did an interview with the press, with the media after practice, and was a really encouraging interview. He's a classy guy, a guy who's really working hard, had nothing but compliments to say about the coaching staff and the offensive line coach. If he can be ready to go at left tackle week 1, that is a significant leap for this team. And then you don't have to rely on Chuks Okorafor at left tackle. You put him at right tackle, where he's a lot more comfortable. You solidify those tackle positions. I'm fine with the guards. I'm fine with David Andrews if he's healthy at center. We might have something here. So this was the first real positive sign from the Patriots offense, at least the offensive line. Jacoby Brissett looked great. Drake May, he'll bounce back. I'm not as worried about that. But some other notes about the defense. Again, Kyle Duggar had a would-be pick 6 on Drake May. A few would-be sacks from Keon White, O'Shane Zamines, I've never heard of him. I'm not sure he'll be on the team. And Tristan Hill as well. Dietrich Wise had a pretty good practice. Josh Uche really struggled in the pass rush and got ejected from practice, so that wasn't great. But, yeah, you know, I'm not worried about the defense. Top 10, top 5, potentially NFL defense. Christian Gonzalez looked pretty good out there. Alex Austin looked decent. You got Jonathan Jones, Marcus Jones. Kay Adams asked Christian Gonzalez about, would you like to play alongside Stephon Gilmore? He said absolutely. So hopefully we'll have some news there at some point. They have the salary cap space to bring in a guy like Gilmore. You don't really have to pay him a lot at this point in his career. I don't see why the Patriots don't do it, but I don't see why other teams haven't done it either. So that would be nice to see. But speaking of the defense, if you're a Patriots fan, you probably heard the news over the weekend that Christian Barmore is out indefinitely with blood clots. And we hope for a speedy recovery and to see him back on the field very soon. But this is something you can't really put a timetable on, right? Like Chris Bosh in the NBA ran into similar issues. He retired. Hopefully that's not the case. You know, hopefully it's a little bit more encouraging, like David Andrews, who dealt with it a couple of years ago and was back on the field fairly quickly. So hopefully it's more of a David Andrews situation and less of a Chris Bosh situation. But football doesn't really matter for him at this point. Let's just hope for a speedy recovery and that he can eventually be back on the field pretty soon. But that's some pretty tough news for arguably the Patriots' best defensive player, and really had a tremendous season last year, earned a contract extension because of it. Just a huge impactful guy on the defensive side. You know, hopefully you'll be able to fill in. The Patriots have plenty of depth throughout that defense, so even losing Christian Barmore, I'm not worried that they're not going to be able to play well, but losing him, he's a real difference maker, and you can't really make up for that. But two guys I hope we'll see on the field this year are Davon Godchaux and Matthew Judon, who had an interesting practice today. But let me start with Godchaux. We know he was kind of holding in last week. He did participate in a somewhat limited fashion at today's training camp practice, but he did partake in competitive team drills, and that was good to see. I guess his trainer, Drew Rosenhaus, who's essentially the Scott Boras of the NFL, was at Patriots practice there. So you know there's going to be some conversations with Matt Groh and Elliott Wolf and Drew Rosenhaus to see if they can patch up that contract situation with Davon Godchaux. I don't think he has as strong of a case as Matthew Judon, but Matthew Judon may have hurt his case quite a bit today. And if you were listening to this podcast or watching this podcast last week, I was saying Davon Godchaux's not handling this situation very well. He's engaging in pressers and just spending the whole time talking about himself and his contract situation and how he's not happy with the Patriots, whereas Matt Judon has expressed his, displeasure for what's going on, but that he understands the situation, that he's going to play through it. And I said, all right, look, this wouldn't have happened under Bill Belichick, but I thought Judon handled that a lot better than Godchaux. Well, today that all changed. Matthew Judon made a scene with Gerard Mayo in front of all the fans, in front of the media. I don't want to call it a shouting match, but it was very animated. And he ended up not participating in practice. He sat on a trash can for a few minutes and watched his teammates. He still played catch with the fans and participated in some of the position drills, but that was it. And he basically, if you read lips, said, I'm not going to put pads on until I've dealt with this contract situation and am more comfortable with that going forward. He also left practice after sitting on the trash can and watching his teammates participate. Later came back in, had another animated conversation with Elliott Wolf and Matt Groh, and then left again after that. So I would say at this point, Davon Godchaux probably in a better situation than Matt Judon. But like I've said, Matt Judon doesn't have a ton of leverage here. Coming off of an injury where he only played 4 games last season, he's up there in age. He doesn't really fit into the long-term plan for the Patriots. Similar to Davon Godchaux, who knows how much longer both of these players, as great as they are going to be around. How much are they going to regress? There's a reason the Patriots spent the offseason establishing their foundation pieces with younger players and giving them contract extensions, but not Matt Judon and Davon Godchaux, who are veterans at this point, and they're really looking at their last NFL contract, potentially, if we're being honest. And that's the reason they haven't been extended relative to some of these younger guys who are in their 20s. Well, Judon, I mean, maybe he gained some leverage today because you want him out there and we don't like these scenes, but going to be interesting to see how Jerod Mayo, Elliott Wolf, and Matt Groh in particular handle this situation, because already, at least under the Jerod Mayo regime, there's this reputation that he's a player's coach. It's much more open. We don't really care what players say to the media. We care about what they contribute on the field. Well, let's say tomorrow they gave Matt Judon a contract extension. What message is that going to send? That, hey, I put up a fit in front of everyone, in front of the fans, in front of the media. I made a real scene. I walked out on practice not once, not twice. I complained to the head coach. I complained to the de facto GM and the other de facto GM because the Patriots don't really hand out titles. And then I left practice again. And then I got a contract extension. It's not going to be a good look. So we'll see. I don't think this really helps his situation. You know, maybe the ideal situation here, right, is Judon slowly works himself back into practice while doing a semi-hold-in, and then this quiets down, and a week or two from now, then they engage in talks and potentially sign Judon to a contract extension. Then, if the Patriots care about PR, that is the correct path to take at this point. Or you say, I've had enough with Judon. This is not a good message to send. We're going to trade you right now. That's another approach. That would have been the Bill Belichick approach, but I don't think Judon would have ever done this if Bill Belichick were still the head coach of the Patriots. I don't think Godchaux would have complained to the media like he did last week if Bill Belichick were still the head coach of the Patriots. So it is a culture change, and that's fine. You know, that's the modern NFL. That's how teams operate, but at a certain point, you know, you can't give players too long of a leash. You're going to have to crack down, and it's going to be really interesting to see how Elliott Wolf, Matt Groh, and ultimately Jerod Mayo handle this situation, because Matt Judon opened a real can of worms today, and I don't think it was the right move on his part, but we'll see what happens going forward. Patriots will return to practice tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern before an off day on Wednesday. We'll be here at Pat's Cast to cover it, just as we did today, and hopefully Drake May bounces back. Hopefully the offensive line continues to improve and become a little bit more established, and hopefully we get some positive news on Christian Barmore and some positive news on Godchaux and Judon. But if you like this podcast, be sure to like this video, subscribe to this channel, hit that notification bell, or subscribe if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Field line after line, offense in Pat, smash through the air. Pat's cash out, goes everywhere. Big men collide, wall of strength and roar. Offensive line stands like never before. Jacoby steps, fakes, the blitz takes aim. Pat's cash rings out, glory to the name. Pat's on fire, heat, blood and sweat. Pat's cash tell the stories we won't forget. Jacoby steps, fakes, the blitz takes aim. Pat's cash rings out, glory to the name. Pat's on fire, heat, blood and sweat. Pat's cash tell the stories we won't forget. Training camp bravado, break free from the mold. Pat's cash soldiers in silver and gold. Conquering the struggle, eyes blaze pure might. Together they charge forward in the night. Playbooks, open secrets they uncover. Pat's cash shouts out to one another. Fans in frenzy chants loud and proud. With Pat's cash we stand above the crowd. Power in motion,